Yeah. Hey, hello. Oh, I'm a bit loud. Todd was not ready. Not ready. Shocker.
I'm really sorry. If Alex Mackenzie heard what I just called him, I'm really sorry.
How are we doing, Mr. T?
Very well, thank you. Mr. P, how's you?
Jolly good. Welcome,
I
everybody.
completely
Thank you
forgot
very
your
much for
surname.
joining us. What?
I completely forgot your surname.
Welcome, everybody, to another Monday Night Live. Tonight, we've got Mr. Todd, and I'll talk about what we're the point of our discussion tonight in a minute. But thank you so much for joining us. As always, make sure that you are liking and subscribing. That'd be lovely. Thank you very much. I hate it when YouTubers do that right at the start. It really annoys me. But
Yeah, both channels.
what?
Both channels, not just your channel.
Oh, I.
I mean, that's the
What, my other
decent
channel,
thing to
Stuff in the
do.
Studio? Are you talking about that one?
Frick.
And do the same to Todd's Reviews as well. So, yeah, tonight we have got a Monday Night Live. We're not going to be going on for hours and hours and hours. We're going to try and keep this one reasonably succinct, definitely under an hour. So that should be cool. One of the things that we're going to be talking about tonight is is there stuff that the consumer market can learn from the posher kind of gear. And the term high end, not ideal because it gets thrown around a lot. But because you know what sort of thing we're going to be talking about tonight, Mark. What would you describe it? Not high end, but it's not strictly mid tier, but it's low production or.
It's stuff I couldn't afford unless I was reviewing. That's how I term it.
Helpful. That's going to be useful. Thank you. But yeah, so we're going to be looking at some mid-level stuff about how it kind of interacts with stuff that we can buy brand spanking new today, so we can see what that's all about. And also, you know, we're not going to touch on the clones thing. I'm going to talk about that right now, just because that's going to just cause arguments. So what? Yeah, exactly. So yeah, there's no need for clonage. But yeah, we're going to be talking about artisan stuff versus commercial stuff and all that sort of stuff. Now, I do have an RTA that I can do a live build in if you so wish, and you can let me know when we talk about that in a minute. But thank you for everyone for coming here. Let's kick off with what we are vaping on, just because that's the sort of thing you do on a live vape show. So what are you vaping on tonight, Mr. T?
I tell you, but I can't remember the name of the mod, and if I show you and I don't say what the mod's called, the person that sent it to me will be really angry. So can you go first?
Yes, I can do that. I have got the Clutch 18. And on top of that, I've got a Vandy Vape RDA, which is a rip-off deck-wise to the Dang. Can't remember the name of it, but we've got that in parallel mode, parallel mechanical going on here, which is good. I've got, why don't I just use this camera here? I've got the Vapor Giant V5S going on, and that is on top of an Aspire Zelos, which I'm actually really enjoying. I think that's really cool. And then also we've got the tank that I'm going to be probably building and the mods. So before you talk about your mods, Mark, I was almost late tonight because I've been working on building a mod. Now, you've seen the pictures up till sort of earlier today, how it was looking. So today was going to be a day where it was just putting it together and wiring it up. How hard can that be? Well, it turns out didn't quite go to plan. All right, so I'm going to bring two mods on screen. You've got to tell me, because I think it's pretty difficult to figure out, which one is from Fine Mods and which one is from Vape and Biker Awesomeness. You ready?
Two.
Right. Dun, dun, dun.
That's obvious.
It's a tough one, isn't it?
It is. It's
So it turns out that there isn't enough space inside the one that I've made for the wire, and I've had to use some wire that's too thick because I'd run out of proper wire, and yeah, so but it works. It's DNA 75C with a 21700 battery in it, and you know, I mean, considering my first ever mod, it's not that much bit taller than an 18650 mod, and it's you know, it's a reasonable size.
In fairness, mate, it's a lot nicer than the first mods that Matt used to make.
But yeah, so I've got to sort of de-wire it and fanny about with that. But I've cracked the top of it in between there, so I might have to make another body now. But at least I know what I'm doing this time, so I can tend to sort of throw that out fairly sharpish. But I'm also thinking about doing one with a DNA 100C in it. But yeah, so that's as far as my first ever hand sculpted wooden mod ever got. So I probably will vape this later on, just because why the hell not? It doesn't really fit in with the posh vape side of things. And there you go.
Job well done, sir.
Thank you very much. I was so excited about it because it was going all so well, just minor little issues right up until today, when I tried cramming everything in and it just said no, that doesn't fit. So it was a bit tough, but it nearly went proper high end because I started to use some hot glue at one point.
Well, it wouldn't be high end unless.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right, so have you figured out what you're vaping on tonight?
Yes, I'm obviously vaping with a mod. Obviously, I know it well. I've spoken about it many times. That's terrible. No, what am I vaping with tonight? Tonight, Matthew, I've got the Dwarf FL DL with 2 mil air holes, I think, on it. And I think that's the big tank. Can't remember now. Ultim one. And this is the Muse by CB Mods, which is very tasty. Yeah, and actually, the only other thing I'm vaping on, I was using the new clutch, the parallel one, but that's back up in the shelf. But because I'm going to be reviewing this pretty soon, I need to get a lot more juice and builds through it. So the Doodah.
The Doodah from Vicious Ant.
From Vicious Ant. That's on the buds. It's
now,
the Eris.
There is something that those of you watching might be able to help out with. Around about 2017-ish, I think, maybe 2018, I'm not sure. There was a mod that I think either went for crowdfunding or it just kind of started to come out and about. And it was I think it was a 2-battery mod, 2-battery regulated possibly, and it had an inbuilt square tank on the top of it with a couple of posts coming out of the inside. It wasn't the KS RTA that you've got. It was an all-in-one mod, but I don't think it ever went to production. Now I thought it was called what did I think it was called? Oxygen or something, or it had a world globe thing as a logo. But if any of you can figure it out, you win score and lots of man points for tonight, because I spent ages earlier on searching online and I couldn't find it and I was getting really angry. But yeah, if anyone can remember it, do let me know, because the Vicious Ant thing reminds me of it massively. So that's it. Right, so the reason I wanted to have this chat tonight, which I thought that you guys might appreciate, is because I've been using some slightly older stuff of late that could be considered posh. Things like the Vapor Giant, things like the Dwarf. And it got me thinking, in as much as, like, the Dwarf, as you know, Mark, I picked up for 65 quid second hand recently. Yeah. And that's kind of the going rate for them, I believe, somewhere around there. Well, when you look at commercially available stuff that's out there at the moment, people seem to be getting used to paying a little bit more for stuff. So paying 50 quid for a tank seems entirely reasonable to a lot more people these days than it used to sort of 2 or 3 years ago, I think. And so I thought it would be really interesting to talk about maybe some of the stuff that's actually really flipping good, why it's good, and that you can pick up for sort of equivalent or nearish prices secondhand, because that might be something that people watching could feel into, you know?
Yeah.
And also, as an extension from that, it was going to be a chat about what things can the posher gear kind of drop down. Has the posher gear brought us that would be great to see adopted by more commercial manufacturers? Because I think there is definitely stuff when it comes to tanks, and we're going to talk about mods and what have you as well. But yeah, I think there's a bunch of other stuff. So it's kind of like a wish list, but letting people that might not be aware of it know about these things, just so they can go, oh right, yeah. Because we are seeing more of the modders getting involved with large scale manufacturers like Aspire and all that sort of stuff. So I thought that would be quite an interesting chat. So those of you that are out there, thank you very much. Hello. I'm not going through and saying hello to everybody because that just takes forever. But hello to you, and hopefully you're into the chat. Give us a thumbs up if you think this could be interesting. I will throw out some asking for questions, but if you have a real burning question that you feel is relevant to what we're talking about, if you start it with @VapingBiker or @Todd's Reviews, hopefully we'll see it a little bit quicker. Feel free to throw in a super chat if you so wish. Right then, so one of the things that I think about with the Vapor Giant, which is the V5S, and the Dwarf, which I completely forgot about, was how absolutely superb they are at wicking thick juice, which is very unlike the sort of juice that high-end people will be vaping generally. Discuss. What do you think about that, Mr. T?
I think you're wrong.
Cool.
For no good reason. I just thought I had to get that out there at the start. No, I do kind of disagree on the high VG, because that section of the market is it can be mouth to lung, restricted direct lung, or direct lung. And nearly all of them will do high VG now. I think that the days of, unless it's aiming for a 0.8 type draw, if it's just that's what it's aimed at, then nearly all of them now will wick high VG, or at least at a minimum 70.
Yeah.
Or at least all the ones that have come my way in the past couple of years anyway.
Yeah. And that's something that's been pretty interesting, because I can't think of one off the top of my head at the minute because I'm absolutely shattered. But I've had some tanks that are kind of mouth to lung / restricted direct lung that just will not sort of wick thicker juice, particularly if it's a bit chilly weather, and it's just an absolute pig and nightmare.
Yeah.
And that's something that I thought was interesting, that these sort of products are available these days secondhand, but can do some pretty stunning stuff. If I show the Vapor Giant, which is this thingy going on right here, it's a tall boy. It's a big fella. You can't get away from that. But it's got massive great wick holes. It's got a juice flow going on. It's juice flow controller. That's the wrong way, Dean. Where's the wick holes? There they are, under there. So we can turn that off. See that closing up there like that, and turn it on. And so we can regulate the amount of juice we've got, but it's dead easy to build, and it vapes like a rock star. It's a bit loud, bit whistly, but you know, it's got a lot going for it, and it's even got protection around the glass, which is very 2015, but very cool. You've obviously had these sort of things before. What do you think about the Vapor Giant stuff?
I mean, the thing is, I mean, I've got the same one. I mean, but Vapor Giant themselves do produce mouth to lung versions of their tanks. So there is a kind of like a mouth to lung version of this as well. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know if there's anybody Austrian or whatnot here. But certainly, in old Hall of Vapes and whatnot, you used to see people walking about wearing, Vapor Giant T-shirts. I mean, they were massive over there.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's still the case, if anything's changed in the past couple of years. But yeah, and they've opened, or they were opening up a new factory, because there was always this question about them, where their parts were made and were they made in China and were they made, the usual kind of crap. But they opened up quite a large factory in Austria, or
Right.
they were. That was the last time I spoke to them. They were going through that.
Yeah.
But they're hugely popular.
I mean, especially a few years ago, they were just crazy popular, and they released a lot of stuff with mods as well. And they did that stack 26650 with the button at the bottom.
Yeah, yeah.
They did. Oh, that was gorgeous. I lusted after that for quite some time. But
the problem you've got now is that, especially for us in the UK, Vapor Giant aren't interested in the UK as a market.
no, because of the 2 mil thing.
Yeah, they're just. I spoke with the brothers about it. The last Hall of Vape, and there was thinking there was possibly a way around the 2 mil thing, but and so many of these, like steam pipes, smoker store, and whatnot, and it's just trying for us to try and get a hold of that stuff now, brand new, and now that with even the main stores in France, a lot of them are no longer not sending to the UK.
Yeah.
The only way to get this kind of stuff is second hand.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's nuts. But when we look at something like the Vapor Giant, the V5S, which is tall and thin, but other than that, is very confident. It's even top fill, but is 4 years old? 3 years old?
Oh, it's not new. It's not new, that's for sure.
Yeah. But that, would you say you could pick one of those up for sort of between 40 and 50 quid?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah, and that's the sort of thing that I was thinking about, because when we look at some of the other stuff that's been available recently, the mass-produced stuff, you're looking at that kind of price anyway, and it's something that you've got fantastic build quality, because the Vapor Giant stuff is built like a tank. You've got generally a lot of customizability. You can personalize them quite a lot with a lot of sort of different sizes and stuff and things and shit, can't you?
Yeah.
And that's one of the great things about the kind of the I don't want to keep saying high end, because it's not, but for people that are confused watching, the idea of high end, it's not really a thing. If you're a high end person, that doesn't really compute, because there's always someone that's a bit more high end than you, so there's never really a high end there. But the idea generally of like artisan products that are produced in smaller numbers, things that are hand sculpted, handmade, things that are made in small numbers but produced within a certain country, those sort of things. Would you characterize anything else in that kind of bubble?
I mean, the Dwarves and Vapor Giants are, if you want to use the high, I mean, they're not high end and at all. If people that put stock in the term high end would totally disagree with calling them high end, because they are readily available to buy and whatnot when they're new. It's when you get into like Imperias and Skylines and things like that. I mean, that's when classification changes. But at the end of the day, it's I
think as a people, we like putting labels on things, but because Steve just said premium vape gear, and that kind of falls into something pretty solid, I think. The idea that Vapor Giant and what have you wouldn't be classed as that premium kind of level necessarily is interesting, because I think, as you said, that's how people into that kind of small section of vaping would think of them. But Johnny Watofo or Billy Smock might go, well, that's fucking posh as you like. It's 120 quid for a tank. What are you on about?
Yeah, but it just goes to show you that you shouldn't put any stock in classification and what somebody thinks what is high
Absolutely.
level and so on. You know, it's all. I know I get my knickers on a twist over it a lot, and I hate using the term high end with a passion, purely because people do use it as a classification thing. That you know.
I must admit, I called this show. I put high end in the title just because I knew it would wind you up. So that made me happy. But no, it's when it comes to, I mean, let me know in the chat. Do you want to see me while we're talking and doing stuff? Do you want to see me build the dwarf and let you know about the dwarf at the same time? Let me know in the chat. Oh, he's gone. So yeah, let me know in chat, and we will throw something together for you. Or I'll throw a quick build in so you can see this. Because one of the things that I found when I just got hold of this dwarf is, yeah, it's not a cheap tank. You can buy them new for sort of 100 and something, but generally from France or somewhere else in the world. But it's super easy to build. The airflow is surprisingly open. It's built really, really well. The flavour is superb. It wicks like a monster for even thicker juices, and it just works really, really, really nicely. But if you were to necessarily put that up against some of the mass-produced kind of Witofos or Geek Vapes or something like that, then you can see how someone might think that, you know, £120 atomizer is, you know, crazy compared to when you can buy an atomizer that is, you know, 30 quid. And both Todd and I have said for years that you can get very similar vapes even from cheap stuff these days, and that works out really nicely. Hello. Welcome back.
Sorry, so sorry.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that that I think is worth kind of delving into, because if we can think of some stuff like the Dwarf, like the V5S, and any suggestions that you've got, Mark, when it comes to tanks or RDAs or what have you, and then we can start talking about the mod side of things in a little bit. But any other sort of things like the V5 and the Dwarf that you would go, fuck yes, you can pick one of these up for sort of 60 quid these days, and it works really well.
It's the same as, I suppose it's the same as any kind of market. It's, you know, depreciation and all the rest of it, cars, cameras, phones, the lot.
Yeah.
There's only a minute number of things that will fall into that hallowed ground of, you know, must have, I'll pay flipper prices for it and so on. But as you said, and we've discussed many, many times in the past, we have both had 25, £30 RTAs, RDAs that have vaped just as well as a £250 RTA, RDA.
Absolutely.
And there is, and I know you've said this before, but that there is no shame to vaping a £20 or £25 bit of gear as opposed to a 200. It means nothing. It really means nothing. Yeah. However, in saying that, my mod's worth £500. Which...
Shut your hole. So, you know, when it comes to, did anyone say they wanted me to build the Dwarf? Oh, there's a thumbs down. Thank you for your interaction. Frutorella. I'm a YouTuber from Greece. Yasu Tikanis Kala. Of my Dwarf worth every penny. You're a little dance. Right, yeah. So, like I say, let me know if you want me to build the Dwarf, and we'll have a vape of that, because I think it's definitely something that if you like a tank, you should definitely keep an eye out for, because I think it's spot on. It's one of my favourite things that I've bought this year for sure. But when it comes to mods, now obviously mods are just a battery bank. They're just something that just provides power to coils. So yeah. I've obviously got my my custom mod here from Matt at Fine Mods, and he made me this. I bought this He made it for me after my great aunt passed away, and I thought it would just be a nice way of remembering her with a nice posh mod. And I really like this. It's a big bugger. It's not small, but it is a dual 18650 DNA. So it's a lovely mod, and I think it looks quite sexy. But generally, I'm not a high-end mod guy or a posh mod guy, because it's just out of my out of my reach financially. So I do know that now we're getting some of the actual modders getting involved with Aspire and others, that we're starting to see some particularly older models. Say that when you're drunk. Getting reproduced, but for a mass-produced market. So, can you think of anything from the posh mod situation that either has been brought into commercial stuff, which has been brilliant, or you think should be brought into the commercial world?
I mean, for example, I mean, you've got the paradox there, and I mean, there's the real McCoy. I mean, that the mod, the sleeve, the beauty ring and whatnot was about 550, 580 euros new.
I'm just looking for my paradox. Hold on, carry on talking.
And
found it.
You found it?
Yeah, right. Pop yours back up on screen again.
So that was say 580 euros all in, and the paradox is what? I don't know.
UK Aspire vendor at the moment has got this with the 9th tank for 50 quid. It's on like a half price deal at the moment.
Okay, right. First off, I mean, the styling cues are there. The same modders behind it and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
I had the paradox. In fact, the up and down button selection on the paradox was better than this. They both do the exact same job, but this is the thing. I do not believe for 1 second that the £50 mod is better at vaping than this. Don't believe that.
One thing that I thought about with that one in particular, is there a difference in how they feel?
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, in what way?
Well, the paradox feels, to use a good term, it feels Chinesium,
right? Because
of the material and the weight.
Yeah.
And the rubber as well in the back. A lot. I'm not going to lie. A lot of it is the snob factor, and a lot of it's up here as well. Is knowing the cost of the two of them, and it maybe says a lot more about me than anybody else. But I honestly will go for the more expensive one each time. But that's just something that's, I don't know if that's built into everybody. You just think,
I think it depends on if you're into something, then quite often you have a unicorn, or you have something that you think, God, I'd really like that. That'd be really, really nice. And see, when people get angry at us for showing something that costs more than a fiver, it frustrates me a little bit, because, those people will still watch Top Gear, or they'll go and watch, Homes in the Sun, or whatever it is. And you can't necessarily afford these things. We're not going to be driving around in a Lambo anytime soon, and some of it, well, both of us couldn't get in or out of it, I imagine. But but I think it's nice to know what's out there, and like I said, to be able to bring the experience of something a little bit posher into the more commercial world. And in fact, a couple of items that wouldn't have existed without something posh is the box and the oh god,
the box and the Abyss.
Abyss, yes, that's the one. Because both of these things generally, I mean, yes, you can do the side by side on this and all that sort of stuff, but they are Boros, and Boro tanks came from the billet box, which was, classed by sort of prestige vapors as being the Mutt's nuts for many years, and hellishly expensive. But without that, bringing I mean, the idea of the bridge and the Boro tank is nothing new. It's basically a cartomizer in a different shape.
Yeah.
But without that kind of innovation in that kind of way, we wouldn't have had it in everything that we have it in now. Whether that's good or a bad thing, that's something else for someone to think about, I suppose. But
It's I tie it back into, and as with most things in my life, cars. You will see things being done by people in garages, boy racers. There'll be underground trains that will start, and I think high percentage of the time, give it a couple of years, you'll see those trains appearing in mainstream cars, which is much the same as mods as well, and tanks and so on. You'll see stuff in the, your modders, the old school modders, and that stuff filters its way down or across into the mainstream.
yeah.
Or it gets directly copied, one or the other.
I was thinking, I mean, we've seen obviously side by sides have had a big old kind of push over the last year or so as well. But when we've had side by sides by like Inakin and all sorts of Tesla even, and people that were making stuff many years ago. But now we're seeing a real kind of push for those sort of things. But the Boro tank side of things seems to be taken over, and there's a real mix between the Boro and the modern pod system, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean the Boro tank was just a cattle tank at the end of the day. It's just and like young optimist, remember cattle tanks with fish filters as wicking. Yes, very well. Oh my God, GP mods, Piccolo. No, it wasn't the Piccolo. What went on top of the Piccolo? Gone straight out of my head. Somebody will remind me. But no, yeah, it's nothing new. It's I mean, in fairness, I mean you've got, and I forget who it was. Somebody asked about the Moab, if that's what they're calling it, the Hellfire one. Will I be reviewing it? The answer is no, because they didn't want it to be reviewed by me in case I said anything negative. True story. But what they've done, they've made their own tank, which I think is, and I tip my hat to Hellfire in that respect. They've made their own mod, billet box type-ish, but rather than going the same route as everybody else, they've designed their own tank. Yeah. Which I thought was pretty clever of them to do that.
Yeah. Did I mean, obviously you've been in the game for many years now, and you've had your niche in the market, sort of more than pretty much anybody else online, really. But did you sort of realise something that you were unaware of previously when you did your own tank with Van and Del?
Yeah, creations are crazy.
Aside from that, they're also shit at football like Scotland. No, because I've been because I've been involved doing tanks and stuff for years before that. So next question. No, I've kind of learned a lot of stuff when I was doing the Basium, and I think the amount of time it takes was the biggest shocker for me. The time when you're trying to make revisions to make something better, then and even to the point of the paintwork. Is the paintwork good enough, and the packaging? Who designs the packaging, and what kind of packaging you want to? And you have to think about so much that pretty much every aspect of that journey costs money. And that's often something that people are unaware of. They just see something and away you go. And to be fair, we have a lot of the same old nonsense coming out these days. So, it's like that. But whenever there's something slightly new come out, I think it's very, very interesting. One of the things that I know that you've just reviewed recently, which I'm going to be hopefully getting my review out for this week, is the BP mods. Iado.
Iado.
Which is the regulated version of the hilt mod that they'd previously done, and I really like this. It's not perfect, but it's a mass produced product, but I really like what this one has to offer. And like I say, if you want to see it, then feel free to go and see Todd's channel if you don't want to wait for mine. But yeah, it's a great little mod, and it is little, 18650. But yeah, it disappears in your hand, and it's really comfortable. It's really comfortable. But that is the sort of design that you would have seen in other areas, I think, rather than, you know, your Dov Pose, Geek Vapes and all that sort of stuff, up until very recently, you know?
Yeah. The thing is, you were asking about, going back to what you're saying about being more aware of the process now. But and I've not, compared to a lot of people, I've not been vaping for a long time. But back in, like, when I started in 2012, 13, 14, 15, it was very different, because modders were a bit more open with the design process, and I think a lot of modders have gone that route now, where they share the work and they share how much the costs, and that used to be quite commonplace. So back then you were more aware of how much it cost to do prototyping and whatnot, because it was usually discussed in the forums. So whereas, yeah, but I don't think it matters what you say. You're always going to get somebody shouting that I can get it for £80 cheaper. You know,
absolutely, absolutely. I'll tell you something else that I think is fantastic that we have on occasional, and BP Mods in particular have done brilliantly with this with their RTAs. But we've seen it a lot with K-Funds and a bunch of other tanks. But that's the prevalence of extra bits. So extra glasses or different size sort of tanky bits, or, you know, different covers or shrouds or whatever, to be able to customize them to make them look cool. And I think that is absolutely superb. That would be brilliant to see more of that moving forward from the regular manufacturers, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's what made the K-Fun. I mean, if the aftermarket crew hadn't jumped on to the K-Fun, I sometimes wonder if it would have been as popular as it turned out to be. I'm talking the original K-Fun, and the 3.1 and the light and so on, because shit just went crazy. I mean, it was just, when it first came out, it was just another tank, but then, because there was other tanks that were kind of similar and some would say better, but because the different tanks, extenders, colours and all the rest of it, boom, it just went crazy.
Oh, 100%. Crazy. 100%. There is something that I was looking for. I've put the box somewhere safe.
Oh, we're royally screwed now.
That's gonna, especially because I've got the review to do shortly.
What box is that?
It is, what I wanted to mention was, when it comes to, no, I'll find it later. It's a shame because I can't get the proper.
Is it the BP Mods one?
The what?
The BP Mods.
Yes. What I wanted to highlight, which, you know, is I think is quite sweet.
I've got it here. Got it here.
Oh yeah. So I've got it here. For some reason, I was being a moron. Carry on. One of the things, I mean, obviously this will go 18350, but when you've got your tank to go on the top of it, this is the flat kind of topper that goes on the top of the top of the mod, and you get a sort of a very harsh kind of angular situation going on there, which, you know, I mean, it doesn't look terrible, but it doesn't look as nice as it could do. And clearly Bruce has thought about that and gone, do you know what, that we can do better than that. So you can actually remove the top section and put the one on with the beauty ring, like so. And then when you put the the tank, and this is the Pioneer, obviously BP mods as well, and that just looks so much nicer. It just looks finished. It looks like it kind of carries on, and it's little things like that I want to see more of, because I think that is really, really good. You know?
I just point out that they were doing that back in 2012. That was oh fuck,
What, mass-produced stuff?
not mass produced, no. Well, at that time it would probably be classed as mass produced. Hang on. Whoop. Yeah. Like that kind of stuff's from way oldie timey time. But it was the same.
Yeah.
You could unscrew that and you could put different beauty rings on top of it.
Yeah.
Went straight into the 510. So I get what you're saying. Sorry, I'm not taking away from your point, but it's
how very dare you. But no, the fact that Bruce has brought that to Dovpo manufacturing, the Aido, it's just available, and you can get the Pioneer or the previous tank, which is also stunning. And there is a bunch of stuff you can get, from like bell caps through to different colours and Ultim and bits and pieces and stuff and things and what have you. And that I don't think would have happened without normalising certain aspects of the artisan stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Which I think is great, and I want to see more of that. And hopefully, what I've been banging on about for years is having more mods that feel nice in the hand, you know, rather than just a box and all that sort of stuff. We're actually starting to get, with these modders coming on board, starting to get things that feel nicer in the hand, although not 21700, weirdly. Why don't modders like 21700?
To be honest, from a regulated point of view, it's not appealing. Because the things that we want in a mod is we want it shorter, not 21700. 21700 doesn't really give us anything other than a few extra ma.
With the things like the there's the Evdillo, tiny little dual 21700 mod. We've got the Abyss, obviously 21700, and it's shorter than the Aspire box as well, which is only 18650, which is nuts. I think hopefully we'll see a lot more of them coming on right now, and clearly we've got the Vape and Biker, classy 21700 that's tiny. And so we've got a lot more options, and I hope we'll get to see a lot more of them. Now, what I'm going to do, a few people have said they wanted to see it, so I am going to build the Dwarf. Now, this is the Dwarf, and we'll carry on talking as I'm doing the build, rather than just everyone sitting around watching what I'm up to. But this is the Dwarf FL, so the facelift, DL, so it's the direct lung. You can see that we've got Dwarf going on here, DL, FL. We've got a super simple deck going on there with little raised sections, so you don't lose your wire underneath your staggered posts going on there. And we've got a changeable, removable airflow, and that's something else that we're seeing in a lot more mass-produced stuff. We're seeing a lot of things with air discs and, different things you can put in and out, which I think is fantastic. But otherwise, I mean, it's fairly simple, fairly straightforward. And one of the things that I like about this is this is the sort of the bell that goes over the top of your build section, and that is your wicking hole. Massive, great wicking hole, which is brilliant for high VG. Absolutely superb. And then when it comes to the tank, we've got this one, which is, Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, is this 3.5 mil?
You're absolutely right, because I can't remember.
And then we've, because I can't remember, cool. And then we've also got the taller version of it, still wet from when I washed it, which is, just a lot larger tank going on. But this is, it's not going to be for everybody, but I'll build it while we're on this stream and while
I'd
we're
just like to
talking.
point out that the drip tip is the best drip tip you can get.
It is. It's super, super comfy.
Yeah.
And I tell you what surprised me about this particular tank is it had a surprising amount of airflow. I didn't expect it to, even with just the single hole in. I've got one other thing that gives me the two holes rather than just a single, I think. Is it that one? Where is it? Come out, you bugger. Yeah, there we go. So we've got that one that we can put in. But that gives me a brilliant vape. It's a lovely restriction. It's super comfy and super tasty. So I'm really, really enjoying it. But yeah, like I say, think about picking one of these up if you haven't done so far. Just to let you know, before I get into it, I'm using one of my own Claptons, which I'll be making, which is a single core 26 gauge Canthal in the middle and 36 gauge around the outside. And it's wrapped incredibly well, so you can't see the wraps. But trust me, they are there. Apologies for having slightly dirty fingernails. Up until 5 minutes before the stream, I was mod building. Or trying to mod build, at the very least.
It's worth pointing out that I wouldn't get too hung up on getting the FL, the facelift version, over the original version. There's not much between them at all. So, yeah, if you can get an original cheap, then pick it up. You'll enjoy it just as much as you would the FL.
Yeah. Just a quick one. It's a little, just a tip. Hopefully, if I can throw one of these in now and again. When you've got a single core Clapton, especially if you use a coil winder, often your Clapton wire will piss off the end. Best thing to do, just get some pliers, turn it round, and give it a little squeeze, and that'll stop your Clapton wire pootling off the end when you're rolling the coil. Right, somebody asked me if I'd seen the Nevok. And I think they were wondering if that was the thing that I was thinking of earlier on, and no, it's not. I've just looked to see what it is. Oh, and it's a coil where you wrap it clockwise. Can you imagine that, Mr. Todd? People thinking about how you wrap a coil before they make a tank, making it clockwise like a normal person.
Do it any way you want, mate. People that worry about these kind of things don't normally have sex, so that's their problem, not mine.
How did you know? But yeah, I mean, one of the things I think is fantastic with this is just how simple it is to build and wick. Now, obviously, because I've said this, it's going to gush juice all over me. But you know, what we're going to do about that, we'll figure out when it happens. But when it comes to mods, obviously we talked about billet box, we talked about side by side. Is there anything else that you think has been generally something that's been for the sort of the premier vapor, but you're starting to see sort of creep into the mass produced world?
No, would be the honest answer.
Fair enough. What about when we look at something like the Hera?
Here's the thing. Going another slant on the topic. Do you? I have my opinion on this, so I wonder what your opinion is. Do you not think that it kind of? I mean, you take like Sunbox, No Name, RSS. Not think that there's a chance that it devalues their brand when they do.
Yeah, I did. I was thinking about that beforehand, and I don't think it does, but I can understand why people would think of it. I think that if you sort of like the paradox situation, if you have something where you've had a very particular kind of style that's been sold for years, and then suddenly you jump ship and do a cheaper version of it. It is ever so slightly different, so you can't mix the two up. But I think you can be careful not to upset your customers that have bought kind of the original paradox.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned the Hera. I mean, I thought the Hera was, yeah, it was knowing the Renato and the kind of stuff that he makes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually really surprised that he put his name to it.
Yeah.
Because it's yeah. I mean, when you look at things like the mix and whatnot, yeah, I could see the Sunbot. I can see how that got away with it, but the Hera was, yeah, it didn't feel.
Yeah. I think the thing that can be difficult as well is if companies don't have their mod mass produced by someone who's great on their QC and who's great on their customer service,
Yeah.
because that, I think, is problematic.
Well, there's a reason that it's all the Italians that have joined up in these things. I didn't say that. Did I just say that out loud? It's the best customer service you've ever had from an Italian mod maker.
But yeah, I mean, having your name against something that is, has terrible customer service, or has a high fail rate, regardless of whether you produced it or not, that's something that is definitely problematic, I think.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, I'm very pleased that obviously with the Basium there was some issues with some, and Dovpo fixed it. They sorted it right out and stopped messing around with it, which I think is brilliant. If it had been someone else that was more problematic and my name was on it, it would have been a bit more of a nightmare, I think.
Breeze Tones has said in chat there, has the same happened with Sig Tips and Dovpo, which is pretty common. I don't know, because Sig Tips was, I mean, it was 4 years ago that the original Squonker came out, that looked less, and I can't remember how long ago it's been now since Signature Tips have made their own product.
No.
It's
one of the things that they used to do, which kind of annoyed me, was even once they started getting popular, is they were doing pre-orders for everything, so you had to pay for something up front before getting it, rather than them producing multiples of it. And it was like that for a very long time. And that's something that kind of annoyed me, because people, even young Richard, I think, was when they ordered a mod, had to wait for ages, and then you have to chase up going, where is it, and that, I think, is just not great from a consumer experience standpoint.
Yeah. Oh, see, Matt Benson, one example of premium to mass-produced crossover, Fev style tanks. It's strange you mentioned the August era, because I just finished recording my review for it tonight. And you're absolutely right. There's my Fev cheapie.
No.
There's the thing that Fev could still cost me £100 second hand.
Some stuff is going to be crazy money, whatever you do, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just to let people know what's going on, this section now has got a little divot going in there, which I think, if I remember correctly, goes over the positive insulator.
Correct.
So we'll bunny ear that one. Where are you? Where are you, little bastard? Oh, I've lost it. It's been a while since I've done this with it. I think possibly the Moonshot was the last one I did the bunny ears for. There we go. Wallop. That's that in. Can you tell me what I did with my scissors that I had out like 2 minutes ago? Oh, found them.
You never used them in your beard, that's for sure. Is that the Gus V2? No, it's not. It's not the V2, mate. It's the Era Pro. But I do have the V2 here, which, if I get my finger out, we'll get round to doing a video on at some point.
Do you think, Mr. T, that the proliferation of mods on the market and people wanting something a little bit sexier and a little bit nicer has meant that where 4 years ago people didn't want to spend more than sort of 30 or 40 quid on a mod, they're now happier to spend kind of 60, 70, 80, even 100 on a mod, way more than they used to?
I don't know. I think it's gone the other way, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's gone the way of people that used to vape 100, 200 to 600 pound mods in the past are now more likely to be vaping with pods and cheap mods than they were before. Because the gear that's out and is cheap now is so much better than it used to be. Did you get a sticker with that, Dean?
Well, the never forget thing.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm just going to take just a tiny bit off the top, going just over the insulator thing, so it's just sort of poking out that much, and then folding it over to the holes. Wallop some of those apples. Too much wick, and you're just asking for trouble, the same as if you're having not enough wick. And there's a very real possibility I might have just made the latter happen. Oh, you fucking asshole.
Yeah, you'll get away with that. If you were doing it really wrong, Rob Fisher would have shouted something just now.
Right, so obviously the air comes up underneath the coil. So we're going to make sure we've got that going on. Wallop. Everyone's a winner.
Give that cotton a little push back on that other side, mate. It's the boy. Bosh.
If it leaks now, I'm going to blame you.
That's what I'm here for.
I am going to be using some Palmetto from Vapor Bay, which is made with the nice people at Future Juice and the nice people at vaporbay.co.uk. I'm still, by the way, I've not been talking about the juice I've been vaping. I've got Future Juice's vanilla custard in the Vapor Giant. We're now about to go with that in the Dwarf, and this is something I haven't had a Digby's juice for years, and they sent me this just to try, and it's flipping lovely. It's really, really nice. And Vicky really likes it as well, so I'm not in the good books for only letting her try a little bit of it. But yeah, Digby's used to be great for custards, didn't they?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But on top of that, if anyone's wondering, I also am still vaping a lot on the Dripper Labs stuff that I've come up with. This is my banana and cherry kind of vibe going on with that one.
All the experts are in chat telling you things.
Are they telling me I've been a shitball and I've done it wrong?
Yeah, don't worry. It's just Pam. She's Canadian.
Oh,
we don't worry about what Pam.
Right, and because it's a glass tank, you don't have to worry about tank killers, which is surprisingly good. Now, here's the thing with the older tanks that you do see them occasionally with the newer stuff, but you and I were talking about this one earlier on, Mr. T, and bottom fill. We both have kind of got really used to top fill tanks in a lot of cases. However, there are definite merits for a bottom fill tank. Do you want to sort of take that away while I fill this up?
Yeah, it's just obviously it comes down to the size of nozzle in the bottles that you use. I mean, a lot of that comes into play, but I prefer the bottom fill on the Dwarf to a lot of the top fills. A lot of the top fills with membranes on them and whatnot, they always back up. you always run the risk of, if you haven't closed the juice flow off, or if it doesn't have juice flow, you end up flooding the bloody thing out. So there's a lot to be said for a bottom filled tank.
Definitely. Right, that's the Dwarf DL ML with the 3.5mm tank going on right there. And let's have a little vapey poos.
Sorry, Pam, I was talking about the PSS, who is called Pam, who is from Canada, who has just just gone for gold.
Lovely little restriction, flavour's superb, and these aren't for cloudies, but you can get a cloud from them.
Oh, you can go cloudy with a Dwarf, easy.
But no, it's smooth, non-turbulent as well. Non-turbulent. Fuck me. God, what? And I tell you something that I've had recently, and partially because it was winter and my bungalow is the coldest place on earth in winter. But tanks that just don't wick. So you build it and you go, yeah, this is all good and gravy, lovely old job. And then 10 minutes later, you're sitting there in front of the telly and get a hoof and great dry hit. It's the worst thing in the world, and it really annoys me. And so I was put off tanks for a little while, but that is not a problem that I've had with either of these tanks, I must admit. Okay. Have you had a stroke? Oh, there you
go. No, I'm here. I was just, yeah.
The threads on the Dwarf are so smooth, I can't fault the bottom fill. Absolutely. And it's pretty easy to undo it. It's not a bunch of threads to undo them. It's not like you spin and spin and spin and spinning. Which makes life a lot easier.
That was the difference between the original and the FL. The original, there were more threads.
Yeah.
More threads.
Yeah.
Pam saying, why a white drip tip? It's Teflon. It's white Teflon. I've actually got I've got about 6 in different colours, because once again, that's the best drip tip you can get. In fact, not
comfy.
just the direct lung one. The Dwarf mouth to lung drip tip is superb as well. It's really good.
I'm just doing something spectacular.
Yeah, because it's saying the Dwarf DL can be really cloudy without the airflow reducers in.
Yeah.
Archie said, what's my favourite tank just now? That would be telling.
Oh, look at it. It's so pro.
That's...
If I hadn't fucked it up, that would actually be a nice looking little setup right there.
I remember when you were a man of the people, Dean. Look at you now with your high-end cable ties and me.
That is a Delrin cable tie. That's not your normal plastic stuff. You have to get these. I get these made sort of one at a time by small children in a foreign country, and it's generally held together by tiers. So that's this gap, truly intentional. That is there for allowing the mod to breathe.
Yeah,
I feel it's necessary to make sure that everything stays nice and cool, and the cracks that are in the top right there and at the bottom there just mean that the mod is somewhat of a convertible, and bits can come off it if you want to. The downfall is you might not be able to put them back on, but you can take things off, and that there is the eye of something or other, the tiger. That'll do. So this mod is all about believing in yourself. And anyway, moving on.
You're so full of shit. It just has to be said.
It's really flipping comfortable in the hand. I'm gonna try and take in the wires out and put some thinner wire in and see if that helps me. But no, otherwise it's I've got to make another body again.
Somebody asked a rather interesting question. Where was it? It was about boards. It's from our boy in Greenock, where you're not allowed to get off your ferry if you rock up there. Anyway, a question for the grey beard and the grey hair. Huh? Anyway, are DNA boards still worth it versus home brand boards? They add such a premium to even mass-produced mods.
Do you want to go with that one first?
Oh no, I'm far more interested in your opinion than I am my own.
Yes, I do. However, you can get the same experience from anything else. I mean, I was going to make a 21700 mod out of coffee stirrers, which I still might at some point, and I was going to use a Aspire Puxos board, and that was a cheapo mod for a cheapo, nothing all bells and whistles, but it works. I would say that there are certain manufacturers that can be maybe a little bit iffier and less accurate. But for a lot of cases, I'm not even fussed if they're super accurate, because I'm not vaping at point zero fuck all. Then I don't, if it's reading 0.75 instead of 0.69, I don't really care, because it doesn't really make any difference as long as it's vaping and it does what it's meant to do. Then jobs are good. The numbers don't make a hill of beans, really. So I think that a lot of like Aspire's mods and a few of the others are very, very good. That being said, I think DNAs are absolutely worth it for the enthusiast, and I think they're worth it. It's worth having a good DNA mod if you are a mechanical user for pulsing coils and all that sort of nonsense, because you've got a nice accurate reading board. And if you want to really geek out and go, balls deep in geeky stuff, you can with a DNA, which, a lot of people aren't going to have the interest in doing. But when it comes to the DNA 100 that's just come out, I am super excited. I've got a DNA 100 mod on the way, but I'm super excited about trying that out because it's got super fast charging, USB Type C, because it's the 100 watt for the 21700s, and it's got just a few more bells and whistles. I think that's superb. And let's not forget, without DNA, without Evolve, we wouldn't have a lot of the boards that we have in this day and age.
Yeah. Have they stepped up the charge rate for it?
Yeah, USB Type C, so it charges quicker.
No, not necessarily. Sorry,
but that's why they've changed it to USB Type C.
Right. Okay. Because you can put USB-C in a DNA 60, but you still won't charge any quicker. It's like Matt said, these numbers make a big difference if you use TC. You're absolutely right, but that's what Dean's saying. Has said. If it's all about the enthusiast side of things.
Yeah. And there is the temperature control is. I used temp control on a tank recently that was blocked, and so you couldn't really see what was going on with it. And so I was using TC, and I hadn't used it for years, and it worked. It just did what you would expect it to do. Whereas, when we were reviewing TC mods back in the day and having to build NI200 coils and all that sort of nonsense, you could have mods that were just horseshit, or some that were pretty good. And there was a big space between them. But now I think everyone does a pretty good job of it, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, that's the leg end that I recorded. I put a review out for the members. Was testing the temperature control on this. It worked fine. It worked great. I suppose it all depends how far down the rabbit hole you go and how refined your palate is, and if you like fecking about with stuff like that, then this is not for you. But I mean, I love Replay. I think Replay was definitely a fantastic thing. Absolutely fantastic. But then and then in saying that, temp control I don't mind. But I never use temp control with a dicodes board because it's just because I can't find it.
I think I've got my. It's in another drawer. There we go.
Right, he's away again.
Oh. This is the dicodes sent me a chip many years ago, and I put it in this mod. I think this was the mod that was held together with cotton wool. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, that's some stunning hole drilling going on in that one as usual. But yeah, I've got it, and I hated it at the time as a younger vapor, just because I couldn't cope with a dicodes board, and it was just way too complicated. And Look at the angles on that. Look, what? Straight is boring. And to be honest with you, that probably would work just fine now, but I've got no interest in it whatsoever.
Yeah. I mean, I've got plenty of Dicodes mods here, and I use them regularly. But yeah, I mean, I am a wattage vapor. I mean, and even like you were saying, I don't vape to a number. I vape, and I say this in so many reviews. Forget the numbers, just forget them, and adjust the taste.
Yeah. And I think that's such good advice, because I mean you see so many people about, oh, what coil have you got in there? Oh, 0.2. Well, that doesn't tell us anything. That could be, there's a gazillion different ways you can hit 0.2 depending on what wire you've got, what material you've got, and all sorts of things. So there's a bunch of different options going on there, but yeah, start thinking that if you're someone that goes, well, I've got a 0.2 coil, so I've got to vape it at 57 watts, then you're doing it wrong. I don't know. Do it to what feels good and gets your undercarriage a bit tickly, and then you'll be good to go. So if anybody's got any questions in chat before we go this evening, please do launch in with them now, so we can we've gone an hour and 10. Look, we're already going over what I hope to do. But yeah, if you've got any questions for either of us, then do please throw it at us, and hopefully we'll be able to give you some info. But yeah,
Vape 90 POTV, Planet of the Vapes. Lost Vape are bringing out the new mod DNA 100C called the Scutum. I will have mine on Wednesday.
Excellent.
And I shall now call it the Scrotum going forward. No.
There you go. I love the fact that you can put comments up in Ecamm. But yeah, I'm not going to be answering questions about how you make something as gorgeous as that. I'm afraid that is something that's a secret that I'm going to take to the grave. So
with a hammer and a kitchen knife, maybe?
No, there's a unicorn horn. There's some very angry pubes, and some wishes. Vaping Biker, here we go. I use a Tayfun box mod and the Dicodes orientated wire. Oh yeah, that's that NIFE 60 or something, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I love it. Excellent. Good for you. I mean, I can't see the point in getting a Dicode just to have it on simple mode, which is what I would have to do, because I can't cope with I just cannot cope with the menus. I'm too old and stupid for that. Is mesh the future, says Sinistral.
Ban him, block him, just kick him out now. He does not know what he's talking about. He's from Greenock.
I'd rather vape my own eyeballs than vape mesh. I hate it. I hate it so much. Mr. Todd, what's your favourite tank other than the Ha?
Any one of the ones that are right here beside me. Nice. I love them all equally. But right now, my favourite just now would be, I really like the Cabeo, the Typhoon GX, Imperia, and the Edge.
Gotcha.
And the Har, and the Skyline R, and I'll shut
up. What else have we got? Great show. Really enjoy it. Thanks. Thank you very much, Ruben. Please make sure you give us a thumbs up. That'd be great. Do you use volts? Asks Neil Pitts. Do you use volts? I don't really look at watts, but go by volts. That I would think that you're an old school vapor, Neil, because that was what it was all about before Evolve came in with their variable wattage.
But you must do.
Huh?
Sorry. I'm telling you, you must do something when I have no idea if you do. I've been around my wife too long. I build to, and I still do it to this day. My coils are normally built to, I could take it and put it straight onto a mech and it would vape the same way.
Oh,
No?
No.
Don't do that?
No.
Oh, I must be too long in the
You're
tooth then.
just super old. No,
Yeah.
I just build for whatever I fancy building at the time. To be honest with you, my normal dual core Clapton is like your standard coil. It's just what I use for all of the testing of all of the atomizers that I go through. That usually comes out to be about point 0.2, but like the single coil that I've got in here at the moment is reading point 0.7, 0.72 at the moment. So I wouldn't put that on a mechanical mod. However, when it comes to this, I'm really enjoying it because I can fanny around with the power, um, and get the vape exactly where I like it. But I've got a small amount of space inside that build deck that gets hot. The air can cover it to really help bring up the flavour, and so yeah, that's why I like using whatever coil I like using in whatever tank.
Sick boy. I have the beast in my sights. I will not be watching Green build the Har. There's one, and I would say this if Nick was here with no qualms whatsoever. That man can build an RDA, and I watched him for many years. Watched him do RTAs is like, yeah, being poked in the eye with a big stick. I'll skip that one.
Best restricted direct lung RTA up to £100, please. Can't really answer that because there's so many factors involved. My favourite at the moment would be a Dwarf, but it depends on what sort of, you can buy the Har. It's massive and has 4.5 million pieces. But if you're okay with that, then jobs are good.
No, I heard that they don't want the Har because it's for people that like to tinker, apparently.
There is that. There is
so,
that.
Max, if you're not one of these people that likes to tinker, then it's not.
You got to be a cheeky tinkerer. What else have we got going on? I don't even have a favourite tank, and Todd probably has 100 more than me. Absolutely, Ricky. We've said it a million times before. It depends on what you want to vape and how you want to vape. That we're in the very lucky position where we've got a whole bunch of stuff we can choose from, but it means that I certainly don't have a favourite. I have stuff that I really enjoy at that time, but job's a good one.
Yeah.
What else? Why do you dislike mesh rebuildables? Because you have to put so much wick in there that I just don't think they wick efficiently. I think the flavour is, while its mesh is okay for fruity flavours to a degree, the chances of getting a dry hit versus getting quality flavour is too much of a risk for me. And you seem to have to put more power through a mesh build than you do through a regular coil, and I just despise mesh. I hate it.
You're not talking about a Genesis. You're talking about
I'm talking about like the current level of mesh atomizers,
profiles and things like
that.
Yeah,
I think it's the devil's work.
Yeah,
not today, Satan. Not today. What do you think of the Odin 100 chip? What do you think of the Odin 100 chip? Somehow I really feel it hits great. I think it hits the same as any other, to be honest with you. But I mean, it's good. It's a nice little mod. Speaking of old school Evolve, I managed to find an Innikin iTaste SVD 2.0 DNA 20 on eBay for 26 quid. Had to get it. Got an Expromiser V4 on there. Fantastic. What was the tank that had the coil had it looked like a machine gun thing, so it had loads of holes in it? That was an Innikin thing.
The Notch?
No.
Are you not thinking about Matt's? The Therian?
No.
No?
No. And you could have one with the
iClear 20. iClear 20s and 30s.
Yeah. And the coil just had loads of wick holes going up in it. It was still horseshit for wicking. Archie says it's a lovely live session. Thank you very much indeed. Roman says hello, ballbags. Austin's haha, sick boys laughing. Dwarf tripod hearts. Oh, someone asked about the tripod earlier on. I think I've broken my tripod, or I think I've lost a piece of it. That's why I haven't vaped it for a while. But that was a fiddler again for me. What about you? Yeah. What do you think about that one?
That's 2 years old now.
Yeah.
2 years old now. I have my DLC one here. I love the flavour from it. I still maintain there's too many spinny parts on it going on, but it's a cracking RTA. It's tall though.
Yeah.
It's a tall one, but it's much better than anything that EVL has ever made. For example, like their new RTA, the Wraith, that's coming soon, which is far too small for anybody, any adult hands to use comfortably. So, yeah, I much prefer the tripod to anything from Evil.
Julian asks, at Todd's Reviews, what do you think of the Reaper RDA? It used to be awesome.
The Reaper RDA. Who was that again?
Doesn't he mean an RTA? Wasn't
Reaper.
that EVL? No?
The Reaper? No, I've never. Was that EVL? Never heard of them before. Is that? No, I don't know them. Is that an English company? I know that they made a tank. It was very similar to a Ukrainian one, I think it was, in titanium. And not many people will get that joke, but John will be sitting there just now cursing me up and down. Sorry, we're going off track. I apologise.
Steve asks, do you think that the Bomatech Pindad was a premium product at a mainstream-ish price? No, I mean, I liked it to some degree, but I think the metal was really thin, if memory serves correct, and it did feel cheap. It looked quite cool, but it did feel cheap. Pam said, interesting, thanks for the answer. I run 10 mesh tanks as well as coil builds. Well, I mean, the thing is, it's horses for courses, isn't it? You've got to go with what you enjoy. And if we all like the same thing, it would be a dull old world. But yeah, that's about it. Anything that you want to talk about, Mr. T, before we go this evening, sir?
I was just going to say, if we liked the same thing, we would never talk to one another.
No,
at all. Yeah,
no. And we've kind of crossed a little bit. Last year was it last year or the year before that was the year of crossing, where you were all mouse to lung and low wattage, and I was all super clients, and now we're kind of going a little bit the other way.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean, you go around like this the whole time in your vaping journey. I mean, it's yeah, you've gone from Genesis Carto, cotton, voodoo wool. It's all changed, but yeah, been restricted direct lung for a few years now.
Yeah,
that's my preferred.
And I must admit, I'm not super into having weather systems going on. You know, I mean, I occasionally I just you get a hankering. You just say, I want to cloud my face off today. But generally, as a day-to-day kind of thing, restricted direct lung works for me lovely.
Yeah, it's I do. I mean, the thing, and Dean well knows, is when you're reviewing. I mean, like I'm testing this just now, which is mouth to lung, and you kind of like vape it all day, but then there comes a time, I'm sitting in the house at night, and I have to come out here and fire something up just to. Just.
John's saying it can't be a genuine suntan. That's not possible in Scotland. I've just realised that you're much more tanned than I am. I'm basically see-through because I never go outside. And
it is just poor lighting on my part. That's all. It's just that's what they're getting at. The usual.
Right. Well, I think we're done. It's nearly an hour and a half, which is way longer than I expected or wanted to do tonight because nobody watches this on catch up. So thank you very much for watching. Please make sure if you are this far into it that you are subscribed and you got the bell on, because YouTube does not like vaping these days. And I've noticed, I've had messages, and I don't know if Todd has as well, but I know that people aren't always aware when videos come out. So, if you can hit the bell. What?
Nobody watches my. I have a Facebook group full with 4,000 people and whatnot, and they take the piss out of me all the time. Oh, you do reviews? I never realised. It's just, what's the point? And horrible people.
My view counts have gone down seriously, but I'm sure I've been shadow banned because there's a lot of stuff that people just don't see. coming out. So if you can click on the bell, that just means that you do get to see stuff. I've got a bunch of stuff coming up soon. I've got the BP mods. Do mod. We've also got the clutch going on, and yeah, a few things, and I've got some new stuff coming in. And Todd, what have you got next couple of reviews?
The Muse by GB Mods. Can't remember if that's right now. This time, the Muse by GB Mod, and the Eris, and a couple of reviews are already up, waiting to be made live. I've got the Wotofo Serpent RDA, which I've now allowed to do a review for. I've had the prototype for quite some time, and
that looks a nice little RDA, actually.
It is. It's quite good. I've got the new Hussar RTA, should be here this week. The Gobby. Can't believe they called it that. But unless it's a joke. And the clutch, like you, I've got as well. I think that's about it. And I've got speaking of the Dwarves, this as well. Got to do a review for that, which is very similar to the Dwarf. But that's it. That's all I've got.
Nice. Good. Oh, I've also got the Drop Mini 1.5 as well, the single coil one. That's on its way. So that's something that I'm looking forward to checking out as well. Right. That's it. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to leave your comments down below if you've got anything to add to the conversation, if you're watching this on catch up. But thank you all for your time. Thank you, Mr. T, for coming on board. I'm not going to try and make you vape out this evening. That's just childish.
Yes, it was. It's always been childish. I don't know why you found it so funny.
but as for that, I would do, but I'm just, to be honest, the great thing about a beard is it stops you seeing the sweat, but I'm feeding the sweat starting to clear up, come up and make me all shiny. So I just want to go because I'm super bloody hot. But that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night, and I'll speak to you all, or will speak to you all very soon.
Good night, guys. Take care.